on time. So, okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to SAGTA's next webinar. We're so excited that you're joining us today on something which could really make your life easier. And I'm so excited because Clinton has found our very, very up-to-date and clued-up presenter. So he's going to introduce you just now, but just to remind you very quickly, please, if you could keep your cameras off and your sound off, just to make sure the streaming is a bit better, although we're not load shedding. It just does help with streaming, especially with all our little cables that keep getting hurt and cause problems with the internet. If you have a question, please put it in the chat. If you can find the chat, you'll see it pops up with a little red little thing there every now and then, a reminder. So you're very welcome just to put your question into the chat, and then I'm sure we'll have some time at the end as well for some questions. Just a quick reminder, we have to do an advert break here, so don't forget to renew your SAGTA membership if you haven't, or take out a new membership if you aren't a SAGTA member yet. We do this so that we can support our teachers, especially our geography teachers in South Africa, Southern Africa, and we just learn so much when we have all those resources available. So I'm going to ask Clinton to please introduce Nolan to us. And I'm sure Clinton will tell you that Nolan is sitting at 11:30 at night where he is. So I take my hat off to you, Nolan. Well done to you for staying awake. But anyway, I'll give it over to Clinton then.
Great. Welcome, everyone. And it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Nolan Ginsberg, who I had the privilege of teaching at some point back in the day. He was in my PGCE class. And I had him chat to our fourth year cohort at the University of Pretoria quite recently about AI and the use of AI in assessment. So I'm looking very forward to some of the tips and tricks that he's going to teach us to make our jobs a little bit easier, because you all know that teachers only work 12 hours a day. That's our half-day job, remember? Other people get to work 7 or 8 hours a day. We get to work 12 hours. So it needs to be easier and more doable for us. So without further ado, all the way in Seoul, South Korea, over to you, Nolan. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the introduction, Clinton. And you're quite right with how teachers only work 12 hours a day. This year, I found myself pushing that limit beyond the expectation. And if it wasn't for ChatGPT, I would not have been able to get through half the work that I have managed to get through. And today I'll share with everyone a little bit about how it has benefited me, but not only my personal capacity, but also for how I do my job and the benefits that it brings. So just to get started, sorry, it's just loading. There we go. So a little background, as Clinton mentioned, I was his student back in the day. Prior to that, I studied a Bachelor of Geography and Anthropology, and I've held various teaching positions, including social science, life science, Afrikaans, English, PE, and now I work at an international school in South Korea, where I am the middle school PE department head, academic director, middle school dean, and I actually serve all of these roles at the same time. And like I mentioned, ChatGPT has allowed me to do this. So many people would imagine that this workload is unbearable, which at times it is, but it's made easier by ChatGPT. So just a little bit of background about what's in store for today. I will perhaps start with the most important part that's on people's mind, which is report card comments, and move through the importance of rubrics and the pros and cons, how we as humans, we could make it much more specific for our students. And even just by generating prompts, using our old resources to create new up-to-date information that we could use for assessments, and comparing and contrasting how we as humans and AI make rubrics. And I'll also provide a demonstration on using ChatGPT whilst making the comments, as well as for rubrics as well. So ChatGPT, I still remember the day I discovered it, and that was 30th of November 2022. And we're only in our second year, and it's said to be more disruptive than what electricity was when that was invented. So we're only just getting started. So the future really has a lot in store for us. But I like to think of ChatGPT as a way of answering responses to our 85-year-old grandma. And if you ask vague questions, you're bound to get either information that there's a bit of content missing, or also you'll need to check those facts, provide more input from your side in order to get the results that you want. Now, if you are wanting to get prompts from ChatGPT, you can always input one and ask it for many others. And eventually, after having this backwards and forwards conversation with your 85-year-old grandma or your chat on ChatGPT, you will get the results that you're looking for. So, report card comments. Each school may have their own criteria, and some schools have a length preference, a word count, a tone, a way of doing it. Some schools want a positive comment first, the recommendations in the middle, and end off with a positive to soften the blow. Now, what's nice about ChatGPT is you can set that criteria that your school gives to you, and it will limit each response for your comment. Now, whenever you ask a teacher what they like about their job, they'll first tell you about how they enjoy making a difference, building relationships. Whenever you go to Braai, always it's, oh, you're a teacher, me too. And then teachers strike up a conversation. No matter where they are in the world, that conversation and that camaraderie that teachers share is something that draws people to the profession. Now, also seeing results, seeing our students grow, that's something that we are really passionate about. And also in terms of creativity and innovation, ChatGPT writes excellent lesson plans with ideas that I would never even imagine or be able to think of. And even changing the time limits, there's so many things that we could do. Now, in terms of continuous learning, what I'll touch on today, hopefully you'll be able to implement as soon as possible. Now, when we talk about what teachers hate, of course, it's comments, 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 and more comments. And the reason being is because not only are they time consuming, and it's very difficult to balance objectivity and positivity. Sometimes we really get carried away. We write in our comments late at night. Perhaps the truth comes out. Now, at least with ChatGPT, if we input the facts, that won't occur because it's a very neutral perspective that ChatGPT will take. That being said, it does sometimes make some errors. It's important to check, I'll touch on that later, about how sometimes it'll put the wrong pronouns or the content might be a little bit off. And also, you might struggle to address individual needs of students, but ChatGPT can help you. Finding the right words. Whenever you're writing a comment, half the time is spent trying to think about what to write. And many schools have strict requirements. For example, they'll be checked by your subject head, department head, perhaps even the principal might sign them off. And you could be criticized for perhaps missing a few grammatical points or repeating a word here or there or double space. Now, ChatGPT can check your comments for you. Even if you haven't written them using ChatGPT, you can copy and paste them into a chat and ask for feedback or search for errors. And it also gives you an opportunity to reflect on your performance and how you can assist your students as well, suggesting ways and initiatives that you could incorporate into not only your class, but also for the parents to implement at home. So when doing your comments, obviously we all start early, we compile our data, we need to have that on standby from the moment we start teaching or get acquainted with our students, because this is the raw facts that we need to input. Now, identifying your key areas for feedback. With that, when you get your prompts from your school, they could ask you to include the success and extracurricular activities. Perhaps it's a student has participated in a motocross bike riding event or a fencing competition, tennis competition. Now, if you have a separate Google Doc or a Word doc where you can put all this information about your students, when you copy and paste your prompts from your raw data into ChatGPT, it will automatically include these things and share praise for your students for that. And in talking about generate prompts, over here you would limit your sentences. A couple of schools I've worked at would have maybe 6 to 8 sentences. Maybe your subject, each teacher only writes 2 sentences for their subject and someone puts the comments together. However that might be, you can set the requirements. So your tone is something that is really unique, and parents who perhaps have many children or students in your school, they might come to know how you write. And if they themselves use ChatGPT a lot, they'd probably become familiar with that language that ChatGPT uses. So I'll touch on this later and how you can personalize your tone with ChatGPT by using some of your previous comments. And also for your subject, you can change it so that it's set specific to either your subject or your location, age, grade, or even the term, so that perhaps it will reflect on the previous months if you're doing perhaps your mid-year or end-of-year comments. And as I mentioned about copying your old comments to supply the previous data, keeping that on hand, really, really useful, because you have a guide to compare. And I think we all do that. We all keep a safe bank of all our previous comments. And I'll pop up on my screen how I've created a few random comments for today's purpose to share with you. After you've done your comments, it's important to review and customize them, because you can ask ChatGPT for feedback. Maybe you read a comment and you discover that there was a pronoun missing, a name was duplicated, for example. ChatGPT really is excellent at differentiating between names. So for example, if I copy and paste my students who are Korean, it can identify which student is male or female. And sometimes it does have a little bit of difficulty. It will allocate the pronouns incorrectly, and that could refer to a point where you might get criticized when your perhaps principal proofreads your comments. So just keep that in mind, that ChatGPT is not always 100% correct. Now, when you request for constructive feedback, your comments could be perhaps a little bit monotonous or not hit on certain facts that you really want to include. And ChatGPT will actually identify that for you and tell you, perhaps on student number 3, or in my case, I think I put myself as Nolan Ginsberg, student number 2, it'll tell you that perhaps you could tweak that a little bit. And like I mentioned earlier, sometimes when we burning the midnight oil and we are sharing our truth for our comments, casual language can come out. So ChatGPT will assist you with that. Now, saving, organizing, and reflecting. For South Africans, where our laptops get stolen out of the boots of our cars or in home invasions, I really think that Google Docs is the way to go, because or Google Sheets, and I'll show you why that is if you have ChatGPT Pro. Because if you perhaps do this, Google. Now, if you have your mark sheet that looks like this, I've just focused on the first 5, and imagine you've got all of your assessments. So here we've got our class test, map skills, chapter 7 to 12, a class test, cycle test, and then we move on to our new unit, and perhaps there's homework. Now, what you could do is you could buy the ChatGPT Pro version, which perhaps is going to actually be released soon for free, ChatGPT 4. And then I would imagine that you could actually import this Google Sheet. So what I did with my report comments, I tweaked it. Obviously, I teach or used to teach PE. I would have fitness, attitude, participation, ball handling skills, maybe a quiz, and you just input this Google Sheet, and ChatGPT will extract all the values for each task. It will use the student's name, and it will create comments using the information that you've provided. So then you don't even actually need to provide data in terms of the values. You would just need to use a sheet that would have your own personal background of the students. So if I take a look at this file that I created, how I usually do my comments is a file like this. I hope everyone can see my SAGTA June 2024 report comments. And I put the student number, student name and surname, and then I keep the comment here with the 2024 or whatever the month will be. And as I move past June 2024, I would keep extra information here, such as now all of a sudden Nolan started developing some bad habits. Nolan was absent all the time. He was struggling to meet deadlines, could never do his homework on time, extremely disorganized. But he's a fantastic student in class. He pays attention well, studies hard. Now, it would reflect on this comment from previously, and it would compare how he was and how he is now. So half your work is now done, because your comment where you would now ordinarily have to sit and type all this information, it's going to do it by using previous comment, current situation, as well as the performance on the other sheet where you would have all your scores along over here. So that's perhaps the fastest way to do your report comments, is if you have a sheet like this. Now, some schools don't make use of a sheet like this, or it's too time consuming for you to make a sheet like this, because you would input directly onto your school information system. So you would need to make use of a sheet like this, where you just keep point form information and then you copy and paste. So over here, what I did was, I'll just backtrack to my presentation quickly. When you start off with your prompts, make sure that you start by setting your comment tone. So if you have comments already that you've done, you can copy and paste those to ChatGPT and then tell ChatGPT in that chat to save it as your comment tone. So perhaps maybe you're doing your June comments and you've had to do comments in March. Then you'd say, this is my June 2024 comment tone, so that it will learn your tone of writing comments. Then input into a new chat, so that you separate the information, and you would say, use my 2024 tone, and maybe some prompts like what your school expects of you, 6 to 8 sentences, and sandwich fashion, and then copy and paste your data. So over here, these were my previous comments, and then I would copy the new bullet point information that I've included. So I've just briefly done one over here, for example, and I said, use my June 2024 comment style. So now it knows who I am, and it'll sound a little bit more like me. Then I said, make a December comment for Nolan. This is how he is now. And I said all that stuff about how he was. And I'll do one about, let's see, perhaps, let's do Sam. So I'll copy and paste for Sam from June. Copy, go back to ChatGPT. Obviously, you could do this in one whole sheet, but you could also do it in one chat if you want to. And I'll say, use my June 2024 report. And it'll say, okay, cool, going to use that tone. Then I'll copy and paste the old comment. This was the previous comment. And you can use quotation marks so that it knows where to separate that information. And now we're going to say, Sam has since, how was Sam? He excelled in using visual aids. Needs to delve deep into geography. All right, so let's just say he has a strong work ethic. Sam has since experienced a decline in his work ethic, probably because after school sport or games. Right, so now we just see what ChatGPT will come up with, and it'll compare. Geography has been in decline in recent ones. Okay, whoops, no, it's not giving me a comment. So sometimes it does compare the information that you've put in, but perhaps because I didn't say make a new comment. Use this to make a December comment. Oops, sorry, I spelled that wrong because I was typing too fast. December, no, I didn't. Just wants the capital D there. Let's make December comment. Now, if you notice, I didn't put my prompts in about what I expect from ChatGPT, so it might give me a very long comment. So like I mentioned, where you need what your school expects of you, you'd have to use those prompts about needing perhaps 6 to 8 sentences, things like that. So if I just maybe perhaps took that information and added that, it might revise my comment. But I won't spend too much time on that because it's more intricate than what we've got time to do right now, because I should have taken perhaps that out because now it's getting confused. Like I said, having a conversation with your grandma, this is what could happen. However, if I really took this center column and I just put it in and I said, revise my comments with the new information, it would do that 100%. So to move on, I would recommend that when you start your comments, start from the ground up. If you add a whole bunch of prompts, confused, and particularly when you're creating like a rubric or an assignment brief, if you try to do many things in one chat, it'll get confused. So start basic, but I want you to use my tone. I want you to create my new semester report card comments, and I want the set criteria of perhaps maybe like 200 words or 6 to 8 lines, sentences, things like that. That way it won't get confused like now where I'm kind of rushing to get through it. So what you can also do is you can ask ChatGPT to give you a version of that same comment. If you have a look here, I had asked ChatGPT to give me 2 versions of the same comment, and it will allow you to perhaps choose one that sounds more detailed, less detailed, more specific for you. And I won't read through all of this because I think I might put myself or people to sleep, but at least this gives you an opportunity. If you decide that a comment sounds too similar or maybe there's an issue with it, you can ask for multiple versions of the same comment for you to take a look at and choose one that suits you. Now, the importance of rubrics, if I have to backtrack and start from the ground up when we're thinking about how we are going to start with an assessment. And obviously you as a teacher would put in the prompt about, I am a grade 9 geography teacher and I need to make a project on gold mining in South Africa. And I'm looking at creating an assignment brief, and I would put in the information. For example, it must be out of 50 points. I want 4 students in my group. And actually, if you use your class list, you can copy and paste your class list into ChatGPT, and it will separate your number of students into even distributions of students. And you could even say, if there's one left over, it'll tell you that that student is in the group, or you could allocate students to certain topics, things like that. And sorry, I digressed, but when you create your assignment brief, you would need to add all the information that you would want in there. Maybe your grading style of percentage for 0 to 20, all the way up through a 7 scale, for example, where you would allow more opportunity than, for example, a rubric like this style. There's 7 scales, whereas this one only has 4. And if we compare a rubric like this, there could be a little bit of room for improvement that you could even tell ChatGPT to add. For example, the level descriptors at the top, maybe you want the percentage in here, because here we have 2 columns, or 2 rows, should I say, and it could get confusing, perhaps if you just wanted it all in one. You could add a comment column on the right-hand side, a column comment at the bottom. Whatever your instruction is, you could tell ChatGPT to do that, and it would add it in for you. Now, if you put your prompt in, maybe you've already decided your topic of your assignment, and you want this rubric. So you copy and paste everything in, and you could potentially get a rubric that looks something like this. Now, I used the same assignment brief for this assignment that was given to students in grade 9, and I added in a few prompts, and I said to ChatGPT, I need a bibliography. I want you to throw in a few examples, give some points for that. There would also be the presentation component of that. And I also want the comment at the bottom. And oh, actually, I decided I want this assignment out of 75. And it tweaked everything for me. And believe it or not, this is actually directly copy and paste. I changed nothing. All I did is I added in the little rubric, because I believe that you should create your own brand of materials or follow the brand structure that your school expects of you. And what's nice is that you don't have to just use one rubric for your assignment. Each thing can be made relevant to that assignment. Whereas, for example, a rubric that perhaps is like this, where there is no mention of the actual assignment. Obviously, there's going to be a presentation component, the technical quality, the bibliography. This rubric is very multi-purpose. You could use it for a variety of different things. Now, again, like I said, if you are making your rubric, put in all the information that you need, the level descriptors, the assessment criteria, your learning objectives, put in everything, and then ask ChatGPT to evaluate what you've provided. And if you just add in the prompt over here, thanks, Clinton, I did see your message, then you would get what is needed. So I'm just going to give an example quickly. I need to create a rubric for my grade 9 geography students, and I'll just pop that into a new chat. And now I didn't add in my level descriptors. I didn't add in the part for a bibliography or a reference list. There's many components that are missing here. And if you have to add it in the middle after it keeps creating the rubric over and over and over again, it'll be a very long chat. So rather put in all the information that you want in the beginning and then press enter and get your rubric. So now, for example, I'll just say, make this out of 75 and add the reference. So sometimes it will list the information instead of a rubric, and then you'd have to say, make the rubric. Maybe it won't actually do that right now, but unless it feels comfortable with the information that you've inputted, it might delay actually making the rubric. But if you've actually inputted all the information that's required, it would draw up the rubric something like this, for example. Oop. Perhaps something like this, and then you would just say, add in a comment column on the right or the bottom or something like that. So I could go into a lot of extra detail and perhaps slow it down and get into it more effectively. But for now, if we have any questions, if people would perhaps pop them in the chat and I would be happy to answer them. Maybe perhaps Clinton, if you have any questions that your previous students raised. Managed to make a rubric while you did it. Ah, that's fantastic. Perhaps opened and managed to make a rubric. Cool. And if you just keep on adding in and put in more prompts, you would perhaps, could you share what your rubric was made for?
Actually, I'm just looking at it. It doesn't quite look like yours. It's obviously I need to change some of the prompts, but it made a rubric, which I didn't realize it could actually do. I thought it could just like list things. So that's very useful. But you had a different button on your one, which I don't have. Is that does it like talk to you? Sorry.
Button perhaps for the chat over, like over here.
At the bottom, no, at the bottom there, you've got the two little pages, and then there's, but the one just before that, you see it under, right underneath the line. No, down at the bottom, underneath your rubric.
Yeah.
Just above that, is there, what are those little buttons? No, just go down a bit, sorry.
Oh, these?
Yes.
If you like it, you can
Oh, right, okay.
either put it into copy mode, which makes it easy to copy and paste. If you don't like the response, this is like an opportunity for you to tweak your rubric, or even if you, sorry, it's got a part over here. I don't want to click upgrade and then it starts asking for my banking details, but at the bottom, or maybe now up over here. Ah, yeah, here. you can click customize settings, and over here is where you
Oh,
can actually add more stuff like your comments tone, for example. Instead of adding it in a chat here, you can add it in a prompt over here, and you can actually set customized settings so that it knows who you are without telling it each time.
oh, that's great because I use it quite a lot, but I had never tried for a rubric. So that's very, very useful. So am I understanding you correctly? For a report comment card, you need to do each student individually, though?
No, you could, if you had all your old comments and it was all in order, you could maybe have your new comment facts for each student and then copy and paste that in the same order. And then you would just say, revise these comments for my current semester using the new information that I have provided. And then it will take all that new information and just merge it in with the old comment.
Okay, great. All right. I see SJ's asked, have you tried Copilot?
I haven't. I will check on that. There's a few that keep popping up with as we like people become more and more aware of ChatGPT or AI, all these new ones are popping up. For example, even Brisk, I've heard of that and saw the really cool features of that for perhaps English teachers or even geography essays. It just automatically scans the essay and provides feedback, and you can just literally click through like a comment and just approve the comment or not.
Does anyone else have any questions?
I've got a question. Can ChatGPT mark something for you?
It could evaluate it, yes, and don't get any ideas, I think. But yes, you could copy the student's essay into ChatGPT and give it your rubric and say, please evaluate this. And you could say, I am a geography lecturer for fourth year students at the University of Pretoria, graded from my perspective. Now, what I actually do is, let's say I'm your student and I submit an essay. I take my essay, put it back into ChatGPT and say, I am a lecturer, blah, 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 using your background. And I'd say, evaluate this given the set criteria. And then I'll see a potential score that ChatGPT would give me. Or even if I have a question for my principal, I would put in my email to him, and then I will say, I am the principal of so-and-so international school, please evaluate this essay and summarize the main points. And I'm pretty sure if someone doesn't have the time to read a 3-page essay or 3-page complaint or something, it will pull out and extract the information. Then you just open a new chat and say, please respond to this.
That's very interesting. I need to ask you the old question though. Do your students use it? And
They do. I believe that we can't run from ChatGPT, so they know that I use it. So I've told them the way basically to use it. And I've had a couple of students who plagiarize, and as the middle school dean, I've had to deal with them. But I move with education as well as obviously discipline, because they need to learn from their mistakes. But I guide them in a way that they must put in the correct prompt. I am a Korean student in international school, or I am a student of whatever background, and I need 20 facts on the Cold War or something like that. And then it will adjust the language into a language that's appropriate for a 6th grade middle school student, as opposed to if they didn't put the correct prompts, they would get university level information.
Mm.
And it really does help them, because I was supervising a homework session and I saw a student literally trying to think of all these facts, and he was Googling and going to a million different web pages. And I said, just put your background into ChatGPT and your question, get the information and study that information. and he was quite surprised that I was giving him that advice.
Yes, we do struggle with that, and I can see SJ said that they're not allowed to use ChatGPT at school. So I don't know, that's an interesting question then, if you are encouraging it there. Could ChatGPT actually identify its own work?
There are a few programs that are like AI checkers and things like that, which we do use, but also it detects certain language that is not actually AI. So even the AI checkers are not really accurate. So because we can't stop it, we literally won't be able to stop. So it's better to move with education and show the correct way to use it so that the students at least learn. Perhaps, does Nicola have a question?
Yeah, it's a comment sort of as well. I
Okay.
use ChatGPT in my classroom as well. And what I find is the kids don't have like an education around how to use it effectively. So I try and do that and educate them in my teaching. And the IEB, I don't know if everyone knows, but the IEB has put out an I can't remember which way now, a declaration form that you can use so the students acknowledge that if they use ChatGPT, it's okay, but they need to acknowledge that. So it's a bit like referencing, but it's more what prompt did you use, what artificial intelligence website did you use, and why did you use it? So as a teacher, we can see where you were going with it. And I've also found, especially with our geography essays, and marking those, especially if it's in a task that you let them take home, I'm seeing the ChatGPT come out. But because of the way we mark and the way we structure our geography essays in the IEB, I find they don't score that high because it hasn't the system doesn't know how we want the students to integrate the theory and the evidence. So I find it's a good teaching tool to show them, okay, so you used it as a base, but you need to go and edit the essay from ChatGPT and add in, use the tool to help you write the essay, but it can't do everything for you. So thank you. I think what you showed us for as teachers is amazing. Thank you.
There's also quite a few Facebook groups. So yeah, thank you for your input of what you're up to in your class. And perhaps I'll share the Facebook groups that I have found over the time. And it's interesting to see what teachers worldwide are doing. And because students are just using ChatGPT to complete their work, a lot of teachers are moving to writing essay questions in class instead of them actually writing an essay, because obviously they would just get ChatGPT to do it for them. And I had a look at Heather's question or comment in the chat about how a colleague put a suspect work in and asked ChatGPT if it wrote it, and ChatGPT said yes. And funnily enough, I was on my way from Johannesburg to Korea, and I was sitting next to a master's student who said that her advisor or professor congratulated her on what a wonderful presentation and essay she did. And she said it was entirely written by ChatGPT. So either you catch it or you don't, I suppose. And that's at a master's level.
Wow, that's crazy. Is there anyone else who's got a question that they'd like to ask? No one. Clinton, anything else from your side?
So I mean, the last time I wrote comments when I was still at the Oprah school, we all did it, in Word by ourselves and what have you. But I suppose if you use Google Sheets and Google Docs like you've got them and you keep it nicely organized, it is just a matter of cut and paste and then giving it the right prompts or the right instructions, and then it can do it for you. But I mean, sure. Yeah, it's quite gobsmacking.
It's quite impressive to see how just by extracting the information from that Google Sheet that you can literally have all of your comments and you just throw in that information. But yeah, I think as you mentioned, by having your data on standby and just storing it safely, and copying and pasting, you can really have your work done in, I don't know, probably an hour.
Yeah, and yeah.
Let me just respond to Heather's question. I'll quickly check now. The Facebook group is called. There's a few. There's ChatGPT for teachers, ChatGPT ideas, tips and tricks. But I think my main one is ChatGPT for teachers, and that one has 456,000 people in the group. And there you can just scroll and read the comments for ages because it's really impressive. Most of it is stuff that you already know or people just bouncing ideas around, but it really is interesting to see what teachers do around the world. It looks like that, by the way.
Great, thank you.
I have one more question, sorry. I also read that ChatGPT learns and stores your information if you tell it some facts. So when it comes to doing your comments, I suppose if you ask it to save that, that would be good. But I would imagine, especially with our Poppy Act, we must keep surnames out of our comments, of the children's names.
Yeah, I'm not too sure how the sale of the information or things like that you write about sharing or information leaks, and perhaps maybe if you only use first names in ChatGPT, then or a student number, and then you just have a separate sheet that you could match them. I think Google Sheets is probably the easiest to work with because you can have multiple sheets in one page and you can just click through. But that's a good point for specifically for South Africa, that it could be quite risky.
Thank you.
I think a few people are going to play with their current rubrics, and even if you've had an old assignment with 10 questions and you want new ideas and you just copy and paste your old ideas or essay topics, or I had a discussion with a teacher who was actually an Afrikaans teacher, and she needed to create a test. And I said, well, ChatGPT will know that book. So it created the 20 multiple choice questions, true and false, long answer, short answer questions. And that was done in a matter of minutes and she even separated the chapters and then provided the marking memo for that as well. And I mean, if she had to sit and type each word out to make that sentence or just format it with, even if you want that test to have five choices or 4 choices, you can tell ChatGPT, give me 10 questions with 4 responses or 5 responses, and it'll do that.
That's quite incredible, actually, just to think it could actually do our whole job for us. Luckily, they still need, yeah.
I'm not too sure if it would separate the IEB curriculum and the CAPS curriculum, but I know from what I was doing with building up my PE department's curriculum, we were using the Shape America standards, and I could make assessments or make perhaps like semester guides based on that information, and it was extremely accurate. So obviously I have to fact check it, and it would be interesting to compare the perhaps things that are supposed to be taught in a semester and how that compares between the accuracy of the CAPS and IEB documents. But even if you wanted to make a teaching plan for the rest of the year and you've only covered certain units, you could even separate it out and unpack the document, and it would pace everything correctly for you as well.
Yes, I don't think it can take over our jobs totally. You still need a person there to teach it, but you made it sound like it can pretty much take over our whole job. But no, thank you so much, Nolan. Thank you very much for those tips. I think it really is going to help us just to get things done quicker and more efficiently, but it won't take our place. So
You're correct. I think we'll always have our place in the world, but thank you so much for the opportunity to share this with you. And I hope that it's a start to your journey using ChatGPT, and for teachers that are nearing report season, I hope it really does help you. So thank you.
thank you. Thank you everyone for joining. It was great to see everyone again. Have a good evening further, and thanks for organizing, Clinton.
Thank you. Keep well, everyone. Thanks,
Thank
Nolan.
you, everyone.
Bye.
Ciao.